Hello, people. Hi. Okay. Interesting, ideas, solutions possibly, or just a different way of viewing things came to this one this morning. And then you're able to see it because, as Einstein says, when you repeat the same things and you expect a different result, that's insanity. And if you look at what's happened for I don't know how long on the political level, the frustration and anger and blame and the complaints of people, if you listen to people, I'm talking about from a higher level now, from a higher consciousness, looking at it from a very different perspective, where we can assist and where there's a problem, from the spiritual leaders, from the ones with higher consciousness, without, not in the ego, where also I understand when you first start the path that you have a lot of shadow, a lot of ego. So it's very difficult you've got to work through that. So you're going to still also take sides because you have your own fears and biases. Once you've cleared enough of the filter, you're able to see without bias. And, once you've done a lot of the work, but it's not easy. But where the light worker community or the starseed community is not helping, as I say, because you're just seeing, if you focus, as Einstein says, on the problem, you only see the problem. You're not seeing the solution. So a different way of doing things. It's envision a better future with better leadership, with unity, with focusing on what we have in common, not what the differences are. And if you look at the system now, the political system and everything, it's all based on the differences and what we don't agree on. Even the commentators and the interviewers, it's all on what we don't agree on, what we disagree on, what we don't see in common, what our differences are. Everything's focused on the differences and not focused on what you actually have in common. You see, it's about us defeating them, this division divide. This is very much, it doesn't matter. You can go into all, that's irrelevant. We know there are problems. And then, as I say, it keeps repeating, and then you've got this angry public, and it's like playing tennis. They'll go to the left and right, and thinking by replacing the leadership all the time. I made a video about this last night, but that's about the shadow, why this is happening within people. So if they replace him and then that, and so that it's like this party, and that party's in, this leader, and it just keeps going on. And they don't find common ground, and it's, as I say, the polarization and thing, the divide became so bad, it's so extreme, echo chambers and fighting, and everyone can see what's happening. So some solutions came, envisioning of seeing it from a different light and seeing it in the light, okay, and how we can assist. Who knows, not the self, but how we can assist the change and see it in a different way. So so it's funny when these just come to you, you downloads. If you look, and this was shown, I listened to all because I don't have that issue. This one's done its work, and so once you've cleaned it, you have no stake in the politics when you're on this journey to a level. You don't have any stake in the politics. You don't have any right or wrong. You understand there's only one. All is divine, all is source. There's a unity. There is no, whatever. But you're seeing this going on there, and most of the leadership and those in politics are very much in the mind, in the ego, in the shadow. Are definitely not on the path, don't even know there's a path and understand there's a spiritual thing and shadow and ego and programs. It's subconscious. So they're running through their filters. They're running through their subconscious filters or their ego filters. So they will see, it's not their fault, it's just where they are. Everybody's, a huge majority of the planet's like that. They are only seeing everything through their shadow, through their subconscious filters, beliefs, fears, programs. That's how they can only see the world, as you know, if you haven't done the shadow work and the ego, started on it. So this is where we're at. This is just the reality. This is where the leaders are at. Very much, because that's where you go into politics, it's very much in the individual I and on the conscious mind, believing that, and it's all about thought and solving problems. But it's never solved any problems, as we notice. It does, absolutely not. The ego does not solve it. So the ego only consists of subconscious programs. This fake I, the belief that I, the mind, is purely only whatever programs and beliefs it's absorbed in feelings and emotions. That is its existence at all. In the so-called holographic universe, there isn't. So from this perspective, this is interesting. Look at where the meetings are held and rallies. Most of the rallies are always, obviously, this is what they do. They focus on getting people, this is how our system works. Very divisive and very much in the shadow. it's focusing on getting our leaders and everyone coming to our party rallies that is going to agree with me, with the ego, with my filter, my vision, my beliefs. So it's always done like this, it's separated. But even the talks, even the interviews, if you look at this is very interesting. Go and watch the politicians. Some more centrists will go on all sides. So they get interviewed or get called onto shows and podcasts and things that are on the right or on the left. And where the problem I found, where it's been shown, where the problem lies here, is that the one interviewing them is in the ego and in the shadow. And they are looking at where the differences and problems are. And they are asking the questions. You see, that through their filter. So they're looking for the problem or trying to find the solution or pull you down or find your fault or whatever, depending on which side they're on as well. You see, they represent the right or the left or whatever. And they're focusing on the same thing. So you've got all not able to see from a higher level of seeing anything from the light, because they're all in the shadow, all in the conscious mind and in their programs, everyone, from the leaders to the interviewers. And a lot of the interviews I noticed on some channels are very much in the ego and shadow, huge ego. I mean, the projections are so obvious out there of the shadow, of their hurt, of their fear. Hi you. You're going to enjoy this one from being a psychologist. This is very interesting from also in the mind, but psychology, right? So this is, if you look at it, I've seen this. You've got all these leaders, right, being interviewed by people in their ego and in their anger and their fears and their shadow and their trauma. Their filter is so cluttered. And they are interviewing these people and their selection and their choices. So everything is still divided. They're always interviewing it from the point of your thing or how you see it. You see, it's your vision only. Or what problems and how can we always focus on the problem. All of this is actually. And if you focus on the problem, you cannot get, as Einstein said, same thing. You cannot find, say, not in the same frequency even, the solution. It's a different frequency. It's a different, you see. If you're thinking about it always, this is what's going on. All people are focused on the problems and not on the solution and not on what we have in common. So if we change the dynamics, we help. But it needs people, awakened people to suggest and help and do this. First of all, get these people on a stage or an area that the energy, because we understand, those that are awakened understand energy, understand frequency, holding that space, holding the energy, because we know our intelligence and our military and people know on a certain level as well. This is why meditation, mass meditation as well, they've done experiments where they've gone in areas and done meditation for peace, and the whole area, the peace, the crime rate, everything drops. This is factual. So your crime rate, your thing will drop because of the energy. So we need to put them in an area where the energy is contained, all right? So with enough people that have cleared the energy, focusing on the energy, keeping that energy clear and calm and peaceful. So we need, as light workers, as those, as spiritual leaders, as meditators, whoever you are, doesn't matter, be it military, the same thing. They know how to do this. By putting intention and meditation and focus, which is exactly the opposite. If you look at what's going on out there now, right? The public are all focusing on the same thing, divided. So there's so much, what has been sent out to these leaders and politicians, darkness, hate, anger. There's increased shadow. There's a huge amount of darkness and shadow and dense energy being focused and concentrated at the leaders. All that does is surround them in more darkness and dark energy. They are not going to be of any assistance to you or find any, you're just putting them, it's going to get worse. Because what you send out is what comes back to you in the first place, as we know. So if you look at it from an awakened perspective, from an energy perspective, because this is the latest science, everything is energy anyway. Everything's energy and frequency. So all these negative energies and frequencies are being directed at them and holding them even in more density. They cannot see out of it. So that is not going to help anybody, as we noticed. It hasn't. It's getting worse. And then you see the same. Insanity is doing something and expecting a different, they're doing the same thing all the time and expecting a different problem, a solution. So let's change it, okay, with the higher insight. Look at, say, Eckhart Tolle or Rupert Spira. Could you imagine now taking, doesn't have to be the actual the prime minister or the president's leaders, but leadership, people that are, in politics or leaderships or representing the views of the left or right, so-called left or right, because there isn't. And if you listen to them, they actually have more in common than not, as I said yesterday. There is more in common for once in humanity. The left, the right, whatever sides, so-called left and right, whatever, have more in common than they do actually not, literally. But because they are so polarized and because there's so much unhealed projection out there, that the views, no one's listening. This is the echo chambers that have been formed by social media and things. There's echo chambers. No one's listening to each other. Everyone's throwing, exactly as I said, it's shadow. Projecting, they're projecting their shadows, throwing stones, it's anger, fear, blame. And all this chaotic energy is being released on the planet, fighting, division, hate, blame, but as shadow. As I said, it's the collective shadow being represented back to them, and they're not seeing it, and they just keep throwing stones. So, because no one's doing the work, you see. But there's no, I'm talking about from a higher, there's enough intelligent people out there. There's enough, in politics or in leadership, we've never included spiritual. We've never included the spiritual, the religious, and not religious as such, but the awakened ones, those that have no ego, those that have actually removed, there's no I here, like the Dalai Lama, someone that's worked through their shit, that has no ego left, that's in the light, that has dissolved their shadow, their filters, their thing. This is what you need. You need someone there. First of all, the energy will affect those they're talking to. So if you had, say, I'm going to give examples. This is just ideas that came through this morning in meditation. When I finish meditating, I get a lot of downloads when I walk, actually. So what came through was an interesting one. Can you imagine now taking, say, two who knows, politicians, right? Putting them on a stage. Even if it's an interview, clear the room, but the energy in the room is there's no lots of negative people. There's no polarization. So there's no energy of the left and the right, and there's hate, there's divide. Get them out the room. So in the room should be no energy where there's exactly blame, anger, hate. We want the energy neutral in the room. That will make a big difference as well to them. Because remember, as you know, those that are doing energy work, healers, Reikis, anybody in this thing, and even meditators, military, they all know this. So that's why they do this energy to send out, to calm, to send out. If we have the room that's clear, so you want to hold meetings in a room that is clear, even if it's a podcast, whatever, the room that's clear, neutral energy, no interviewer that has a massive shadow, which they all, I see all the news media, all these news are seriously in ego and shadow, big time, and their comments are even, especially, are very divisive for a reason. I've watched a lot of programs and interviews, so-called. They are very divisive. They're very much in their shadow. So they're looking for the problems in the, wherever, to find fault. So if you look for fault, you find it. If you look for solutions, you find it. If you look for unity, you find it. If you look for division, you find it. So what we have, the current system, is always been looking for problems, looking for division, looking for fault, and that's is what they've found. And then we think, we can't understand why things don't change out there. Because insanity repeats itself. That's the ego, that's the shadow. The shadow is only a pattern of behavior stored in each person, the ego. That's all it is. It's patterns of behavior and thought. And then you wonder why, as Joe Dispenza is a classic proof, nothing changes. And this is what's happening. But we have enough people out there that are awakened. So there's an idea to who, I don't know. I'm putting it out into the collective and it will spread. It's energy. So this is why maybe it's a good thing to talk. So what was shown, right? Say you have, just take two leaders or two political leaders that are up and coming, that are, who knows, whatever, right? Put them together and have, say, Rupert Spira or Eckhart Tolle. You need someone in the center. So we want three. We want three people in this interview thing. The one in the middle is holding the energy and the space. So that will be, say, someone like Eckhart Tolle or Rupert Spira. Put him in the middle. That energy, or especially someone that actually has no ego, that the person has left, is only at the body there, that is neutral, that is actually transcended their ego or their shadow. That energy is completely neutral. Secondly, they can see very clearly, because you're able to see all people's stories. And if you've lost the ego, you get to see. It's like a psychic. You can see exactly all their shadows, their trauma, their story. So that person will be understanding and neutral. First of all, has no political interest, understands everyone's one, there's unity. So you need a spiritual leader in the middle, because that one really knows that there is no, all is one, there is no division, there is no, you see. So the person holding the meeting, or let's say holding space in the meeting, must be completely neutral, must be spiritual, must be in that thing that has no interest, understands there's only one here, it's love and compassion. Or exactly, transcended the ego. So I'm giving those examples. Say Rupa Spira sits there. There's, let's say, I'm going to give examples because only ones I can think of. So there is, say, Janus, I'm not trying to be insulting, I don't know the man's name, so I'm just going to give an example. Say you have Rupert Spira or Eckhart Tolle, and you have Janus Varoufakis, who interviews, is very much on the left. Oh, you would call the left. This is all just labels. Ideas. So they will see the solution through their filter. And then you have, say, Rory Stewart, who's a candidate, a Tory, say what they would call the right? You put them together, because both of those are very intelligent people, but very much in the conscious mind, and also focused on, anyway. So you've got to start somewhere. And I'm just thinking of ideas, right? Especially one that isn't under shadow. And we need to have political interviewers or meetings or podcasts now. Hell, let's have facilitators that hold it in a neutral energy, neutral space, looking for the solution and the unity and holding that energy and not the division. And stop having these echo chambers and people interviewing them purposely looking, you see, to find the fault, to show, to just say dismantle their opinion, their view, because that's what you're going to do, trying to destroy each other. It's constant. That's shadow. It's all about division. That's ego. Division, hate, divide. Shadow, 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 because everyone's in their shadow. Everyone's in their ego and their mind and their shadows. So let's facilitate meetings where we have leaders together, not in big, even those political meetings are not good, because you've got energies of all mixed, divided, unless you have it neutral. But you need enough, say, light workers or meditators or people there. You could even have Lee Carroll, Cryon, doesn't matter. Someone like that can sit there. Still will have shadows, but in that space and hold space. We need people to hold the energy in space and direct it where they can see. And then they can see when they're going a bit off course, get triggered, and then, be able to pull them back into unity. You see, if you have facilitated and a person in the political leaderships or meetings like that, when they're able then to see, that one's going off, that person, if they're out of their shadow and ego, they're in a transcendent, whatever space, will be able to find, first of all, and see the common ground, because they have risen above their ego and their shadow, will be able to, and have no meat in it, only see unity and compassion, will be able to see the common ground and pull them back. So where they're going a bit off track and getting a bit, that facilitator must be a spiritual leader that has actually transcended its ego big time, and be able to calmly, all right, let's see where we have in common, and they will be able to see the common, be able to see the solution that serves both parties. So we are, otherwise we're just going to keep going. We've got this terrible polarization, echo chambers and hate. All it is, as I explained yesterday in my video, which was purely on shadow. Everything out there, as I explained yesterday, I'm not going to go into it again, but the leaders are only reflecting the collective shadow in the Maya, this is what their role is. And because people haven't transcended it yet, are just seeing it and you see, and throwing stones, it's what we're doing, get rid of him, he's wrong and he's bad, whatever. And then we don't know why, because they are just a reflection of the collective shadow held in the consciousness or the belief, and no one is seeing it. So the throne, this is just a cycle of suffering and divide and hate and blame, and because that's it. So how are you going to teach? You see, the leaders are in shadow or in ego. The public are in it because they're only reflecting to the public what's held within them. But if we have ones that are not now, so we need the ones that are transcendent of their shadow to start. We need to really pull in our, as I say, spiritual leaders together with politics, to help to facilitate That's what they did in the old days. Our spiritual leaders, or whatever those, they were the leaders in the old days. You know what I mean? But we're talking about the ones that have transcended ego, that have actually dropped the I, that realizes, that what is and what is not here. So there's an idea, and I just thought, well, we do need facilitators, but it's really what you see. What's affecting it is the energy too. If you are in your shadow, because we've all been, those on this path know this very well, and you go into a room with on the same frequency, energies on the same frequency and resonance, wow, that vortex is very strong, that energy. It's going to suck you in. You're going to be influenced by that speaker or by that leader, by their energy. So all you've got is these two negative energy pulling each other down and keeping that shadow and echo chamber, and just, you see, we've got the static going here. You're stuck in this hot pattern. It's energy. And all these interviewers and podcasts are the same thing. So it's not helping us, you see. We need to get them interviewed by neutral. Even if I'm not saying the Dalai Lama is a busy man, but there we are. So these people, we need the rooms cleared of energy, the space held. There's enough light workers, and this is exactly what's not going on out there. Because even that, the levels they're at are divided. The light workers, they're good, he's bad, whatever, because they're in shadow and still believing in the Maya, buying what's being told. If a lot of people are still believing what's out there, information coming from outside, you see, and not that we create our reality. It's a big thing. So I don't see, this is what I'm saying, we're doing the same thing. Same story, the same interviews, the same podcasts, the same, let's have our debates, and it's the same energies, the same nonsense, the same rallies, the same, all divided again, all separate, and let's see what he's doing, and I did this, and we will do this. You see, we've got projection. We've got this side telling you what they can do, trying to sell you your projection, when actually is a huge amount of common ground. If you listen to them, they all want the same thing, actually, for once, very much at the moment. You'll see there's more unity between the left and right now than ever, actually. But because we're not listening, because everyone's in their boxes and looking for the fault, no one is trying to see, all right, let's sit down. And those that understand this, who have played facilitators or mediators in meetings, this one has, but not on that level, but yeah, some. If you haven't got in a meeting game, you're able to listen and understand both sides and see where the thing is. So you can we need to find the common ground. You see? But then there's going to be, that's the thing, but they're not flexible. This is how we can solve it. This is the only way, because that's the only filter I can see. This is the only way to do it, because this is a story and program I've been taught. Everybody, all their shit that there's inside has come from the outside. What a family, what the politician, or what my mother, my cousin, my ancestry, this nonsense was taught to me. That's all you exist of. Beliefs, programs, ideas, it's all from outside. Nothing comes from within. That's the ego. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Blah, 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 blah. That's running. It's a repetitive program that runs as on the spiritual path. There is no. So to get rid of it, I think that's the only way. I think this is the best solution. Because they repeat, and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And then you wonder why the public are angry. So it only enforces the divide, because what are they representing? The leaders are showing you. So the same thing, showing the public what they're holding within, and they're confirming it, and we got this echo chamber going on. So the public copy the leaders. Yeah, you see, and it's our ideas, and you're wrong, and there's fear, programming, rubbish, very, as I said yesterday. The shadow, that's gone into the spirit, what's being there. I've explained the shadow, it's being reflected. People are not even saying that. But this is what I'm saying. So we're doing the same thing. So they're listening to the podcast, and everyone, and they're all following their person and what he's saying, and that guy. You see. And then thinking it's going to change. So the same thing, the public are doing the same thing. But if you have leaders up on the stage all of a sudden, and you stick them among Eckhart Tolle and Rupert Spira, and you have them looking for unity, let's unify, let's see what we have in common. Now we find a solution that suits all. because that can only be done through someone that's neutral, that can see all sides, and that's transcendent here enough to look and actually see the solution. Because if you're looking for it collectively and out there, as we know, frequencies, downloads, the answer will come to you. All will come to you, because source, all information, all knowledge, all is there in the field, because that is you. That's what you are. Anyway, there we are. Who knows? That just came through. So yeah, what you're seeing now is the same approach, the same nonsense, the same podcast, the same echo chambers, the same thing, trying to win to their sides, and you will have the same problem. Let's fight, let's divide, let's blame him, let's blame, and then it doesn't work again, and they can't understand why, no one's happy again, and let's change them, let's change that party, let's destroy them, let's remove them, It's shadow, we all know that. There's a collective shadow being reflected back. That's all the poor leaders are doing, that you see. Those in shadow are throwing stones. So they, as leaders, as things, they need to set an example. But they're in their shadow, so they need guidance. They need those spiritual leaders, those facilitators, to hold space. That's how we should actually conduct our so-called political debates and find so-called solutions, because it's for the whole. So we will stop this party, them, let's blame him. It's the tennis match. And so many won't vote. Why? Because they think, what's the point? Nothing changes. It's because we are not seeing the reflected shadow. We're all in our echo chambers and shadow and ego. In our mind, in our programs, subconscious. Everybody's run by the subconscious blah blah programs. Big time. Absolutely in their shadow, in their ego, big time. And of course, everybody still, all the podcasts are focusing on the problems. Oh, but you see what they did. What can we do? And there's no collective consciousness focusing on the solution. You see? So of course it's not being given. How can the collective come to a solution when the consciousness is always focused on the division and the problems? So the collective consciousness are only perceiving the division and the problems, because that's what's being projected, that's what's being sent, that's what's out in the collective. The podcasts, the media, the news are the worst. The worst. These news podcasts, these programs are the worst. They're echo chambers. So they are projecting it out there. Everyone's focus. Yeah, it's amazing. But this is what I'm saying. Even Einstein. So it's energy. Everybody. What you focus on, we all know that in meditation, and is what you get. Same with energy. So if the collective, humanity, leaders, everybody is focused on the division, which they are, and the problems, as Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem with the same thought and attitude you can't. So when you put it up the mind, as we know, or we focus and we meditate, we leave it, we sleep, and then we meditate in the morning, we ask for the solution, and poof, guess what? The answer comes, the solution comes. Look at all scientists, everybody will tell you. When they weren't thinking about it, this is part of this whole awakening and non-duality, meditation, neurology, anyone will tell you. The answer comes, bingo, when I walk. You know how many downloads I get when I walk? It's not, I used to walk for peace. I used to enjoy my walks actually, because they were normally just no mind. Now my walking is a download program. There seems to be the huge amount of downloads. So when I go walking in nature, all the downloads and answers are coming in. The same thing. Stop focusing on the problem, relax, put it out your mind, guess what? Poof. Anyway, who knows why they're coming. So yeah, I saw that and I thought, what a difference you would have if you had, I'm just giving, because I only chose those leaders only because why? They have influence, those people. They represent two sides, and they're both very much very intelligent, very intellectual, and they're not, they're not aggressive. There's no, fighting too much. They would listen. You see, those two leaders are people that will listen without emotions. I'm just choosing them because of that. They're good examples. Yanis Varoufakis and Rory Stewart, which is an MP for the Tory party in England, even no one doesn't know. And Yanis Varoufakis he was a Greek MP, but he's very much on this. You see, this is the fear, the program as well. The communist, leftist, they love playing this. This is a card that's played by, see, this is the same thing, played to divide and fear. The communist socialist thing, nationalist is a... So if you put fear, oh, nobody wants to listen. You see, immediately you're focusing on the opposite. Where you've actually sat and listened, those two are very intelligent and they have a great influence. And you're able to sit there then without going to rock the boat too much. So we got to start with people. And you watch that will spread because people will be listening and they'll be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Oh, my goodness. And when they start seeing the leaders behaving like looking for unity solutions and things, wow, what an example. But as I said, it's energy. The place where the meeting is held is very important. The meditation, the energy, the clearing of that, the holding space. Light workers also, there's a good thing. Look how many light workers are not. Look how many light workers are still very much haven't worked to their let's say, bottom 3 chakras. They still have a lot of that, fear, shadow, whatever. So there's a lot of, they taking sides. The so-called people on the awakened path, when you first start, you've got to work through it. So there's still a lot in the so-called light worker starseed community, huge amount of side taking as well. Because I haven't realized at the moment yet that there's only one player here. They have a knowing way, but not reached that realization and experience or as such, been shown it as such. You know what I mean? You are only source. There is no you actually here. There's only the one player here. Anyway. There we are, because you see this suffering, and as I say, the love for the one is so much compassion, as any awakened one will tell you. It has compassion for those unawake because they don't know who they are. And it only has love and compassion for itself because it's the only player here. That's self-love. That's true self-love. So you sit and you watch all the suffering. And you have so much empathy and sympathy for the suffering because everybody's angry and fighting and blame. But nobody is to blame because when you're unawakened and unaware that this is what's actually going on, that whatever that character, body, let's say, so-called person has experienced, which is trauma, shadow, fear, through their upbringing, through their ancestry, through experience, through programming, through TV, through school, huge amount of shit. We didn't know lower consciousness. This is what's running in each one, and they are stuck in this. So you cannot blame them, as I said. You cannot blame them. Those that are not awake, that are in the third dimensional density and consciousness, that are sitting in their mind space programs and are projecting. They're seeing the world through their filter, which is fear, whatever, belief systems, fears, as we know, the whole, if you understand the ego thing. That's what they're seeing. That's the only way they can see the world. You see? So you can only have, so you sit here as an awakened one and you have such empathy and sympathy and feel such sadness for them because they're hurting themselves. As you see, you just see this, and they're in a loop. That's what this ego is, the so-called ego. So it's a loop. That's it. That's the whole thought that runs. That is a loop. As they say, the ones that stop all thought out of that, because that's the ego. Never mind. Let's not even go to that. This is all about the solving the problems. So I think it would be so nice if we start seeing our leadership held by a spiritual person, just holding the space. And when he sees, okay, and looking for, okay, when they get stuck, okay, there's a solution. But put a suggestion out there. But what about this? See, finding the middle ground. But those in their ego and shadow cannot do it without help because they only can see through their filter. They need the guidance and leadership. They need the guidance by someone not controlled by their ego and their conscious mind, run by their subconscious programs. This is really what's needed. Or it's only going to get worse. You see, because it's emphasizing the loop and the figure and the trigger, and they say, that's what I'm saying. It's just getting more angry, more frustrated, more fear, because those that have awakened, have been through this process or working through their thing, know exactly what I'm talking about. You are absolutely unconsciously controlled by your fears, your programs, your beliefs, your definitions, your nonsense. Controls your life. You'll see. And all they're doing, as I said yesterday, is explain what the shadows are being projected to the public. The public are holding it. The public. That's all they're doing. They're only playing a reflection. The shadow plays a reflection to reflect to you what's held within. So those poor so-called leaders are reflecting to the collective their shadow. And the collective are throwing stones, and you see him, it's him, looking for the bad, instead of realizing it's within me. That's it. So how can you be upset? How can you blame? So we sit here and we feel, oh my gosh, you see all this mess. You have sadness, love, and compassion. You're not. So there we are. I'm putting it out there. Who knows? I'm just putting it out, and we can all, maybe anyone listening here that would like to, that is in that thing looking for unity, peace, love, sit and meditate and put it into the field. So take those thoughts, visualize our leaders sitting on a stage with, say, Eckhart Tolle, Rupert Spira, Dalai Lama, who knows, that can hold and look when we have a debate, not a debate, because we're not looking for this, looking for the fault. We're looking, if what they do now is choose a so-called leader or a news person that's got their little script sitting there. We want nothing prepared. We want a relaxed environment. So you haven't got our questions strategically prepared, looking for the problems or looking for the wrong or the this. You see, that's what they do. Because the conscious mind, that person who facilitates all of these podcasts and nonsense, is sat through their filter or whoever they're working for, and is prepared. Oh, let's see. We're going to ask these questions. Because this is where we see them. You see, their shadow. So it's shadow reflecting, directing. It's always a shadow, directing the problem, directing the interviews, directing the everything. And it's, as we notice, 50 years of a cycle of a tennis match. Sides. Why do we even have sides? Because that's the public. Reflected to them is a divide, because we are divided, you see. Shadow, self. Ego, self. Them, they good, they right. This is, you see, it's being reflected back to the public, because it's a program that's been taught and run for so long now that we need to break that program now, big time. So I'm asking those on here, that's your filter, you see. That's what I'm saying. There's a classic example, John. Thank you. See, you were raised, that's what you were taught. That's exactly what your program is. Divide. I don't want. But if you sit down and ask, who's that I? And why don't you want? We need, and our leaders are reflecting the same back to you. See, their shadow. Whoo, big ego. Big shadows, big ego. The ego is very much, as we know, in control there, because that's what attracts the shadow to that. Big time. So we need people to facilitate these political meetings and things that are not in the ego and shadow. And we need light workers and people and staff to hold the energy. We need meditators and people to clear rooms, to make sure the spaces are free of that energy, which is divide, anger, hate, blame as well, especially because that affects the people. Those that are in a lower density and energy, we know very much, will be affected by the lower energies and densities. Those that are transcended the ego will not be affected by any energies, because their energy there's no me there. You see, there's no I. The I has been dissolved. So it is completely, and that will affect them, because the higher frequency, as we know in science, higher frequency overrides a lower frequency. So we need a high frequency person to interview the lower frequency candidates that are in their bottom three, identity, chakras, ego nonsense. All right. Anyway, so I'm asking those that are awakened now, as you see, when these ideas come through, you put them out into the field. So we're putting a solution into the field, and this then vibrates through the field, through the collective consciousness. It's not me, it's what I'm saying. And remember, there's only one here. There's only one here. Let's don't look at the body and think it's coming from the body. No. The body is no different to any other body out there. It's an empty shell that Source is using. It's a filter, as we know, that the one is using. See? Yes, absolutely. All. The one rides all, my friend. the angel and the broom. So that's it. So put this into the collective field, because do they need help? And because I say, you see, then they understand, they can't understand why things change, because they're repeating insanity, the same patterns. Look at the behavior, look at the debates, look at the fighting, look at the interviewers, look at the, oh man, it's just, and then, of course, we don't want to see our shadow, it's them. There's only one player here, anyway. So please put this into the collective field, those thoughts. Vision, a stage. Doesn't have to be in a stage, even an interview. Can you imagine how wonderful that would be? Vision, a stage. Yeah. Now the one rides all. It is all in existence. There's only one here that exists, and anyone will tell you that. That is there. So let's visualize, let's say, see a political leaders, or see them together sitting in a nice environment that's very neutral, that's very held in their energy, and looking for a solution, but the meeting being held by, say, you could even have spiritual leaders there, but you see, it doesn't help us having, let's say, shamans, or it doesn't even indigenous leaders there, because it doesn't matter. It's not the being. It's if they have done enough of the clearing of the ego in their program, because all people from all walks, so-called people, leaders very much in fear, trauma, shadow, and program. Even our indigenous, because they the experience. So there's huge amount of projection out there. There's too many in the shadow. Whoever holds the space cannot be in their shadow, in their subconscious program anymore. So we need, those that have transcended their ego. So put that into the field, please. The only ones that's about that I could think of was, say, Mooji. There's one that people, and I think Rupert Spira, Eckhart Tolle, those are good examples. And it's only because this is what this one can now think of immediately. But there's many out there. But really one that has no ego, that has transcended the ego. And that is, if you watch carefully, you can see. You see, that has only interest. They don't have any interest in this, because they know it's a maya, it's an illusion, Because in the dream, you are playing. At the moment, there's too many people, and they still need that guidance that aren't awake, you see. So we need solutions that will solve all, because like anything. If you go to a fight, watch kids fighting, right? How do you say, who's going to fight? You cut the cake in equal slices, and you solve the problem. Because otherwise, my piece of cake is bigger than him. You gave him more than me, you see. Just an example. So this is what's happening out there. We have a cake. And no one's going to be happy if they get a smaller piece than the other. So we want something, a solution. That's the only way you solve any argument, any conflict, anything. You need to find a solution that fits all. And at the moment, the system is, we win, you lose. You see, it's all about who wins. The winner takes all. This is a program, an old ego. This is very much ego. It's in conflict and divide, shadow. So all our systems and all our programs is about, even sports, school, the winner, the loser. You see. Now, as you know, when you have children, this one's a mother. So there we are. What do you see when you have fights? Hey, why are you going back to my party? You see, and you want to solve the problem. When everybody gets what they equal share, everybody is happy. And we want to stop this. This is why no one keeps fighting this divide. So we got to look for a solution that fits all. Finally. All right, find the middle ground. There we are. All right, put that into the field. I hope that solves your problem. Because you are now playing in the Maya, you have a body, you see. So there are still needs, there's still functions of so-called society, all kinds of things, schools, this, education, you're welcome. But at the moment, the system does not fit all, and this is why there's a constant fight from the sides to pull. And if you listen, as I say, at the moment, the left and right really have so much more in common than ever. They're seeing the same problems, they're complaining about the same things, but they're not listening to each other, they're not even aware. No one's looking for common ground. No one's looking for a solution for all. Everyone's projecting their shadow, and it's being projected back, and throw stones, and then, oh, we don't know why. All right, put this into the field. See a neutral facilitation, looking for solutions out of shadow, fear, trauma, crap, because that's the shadow. It's all in fear, trauma, projections, what you've learned, what you've been taught, what you're told. All right, judgments, hates, biases, and nonsense. It's all they're doing. So we cannot, and so I say, there's no blame and hate for anybody. We need people that understand this. There we are. Let's get unstuck here. All right, lovelies. Thank you. Bye.